everybody out there, whoever might be there. I see Fred out there, and we've got 4 people in total right now, and I'm sure that we're going to have some more people coming in pretty soon. But today we're going to be talking about a film, 28 Days. And we might also talk about another film because Mary watched the wrong movie.
Yes, and you know how I always talked about when I came on here that I was gonna show up perfectly imperfect? So I
Uh-huh.
perfectly imperfectly watched the wrong movie last night. I thought
See.
it was Clean and Sober with Michael Keaton, and I'm well versed in that. So
Okay.
so
Which
then
was which
but
was a
it's
good
all
movie.
good. It's all good.
Yeah,
It was
it'll
a
be
good
just
movie, yeah.
fine. It'll be fine. And you have seen the movie before, and
Yes.
we have some things that we have a kind of a questionnaire thing that we can use to kind of go through it. But hey, Bobbert, how you doing? Good to see you. And John, good to see you. And John says that I had not seen this movie before until last Saturday. I enjoyed it very much. It brought up some feelings. Anytime I watch a movie that has to do with addiction and recovery, it always brings up feelings because I can connect and relate to the characters so well, more so than I can in other movies, I think. There are a
Yes.
couple
Oh,
of movie scenes that always get me, and the addict coming to realize that she has a problem, or dealing with some death of a family member, things like that, just really always affect me deeply when I watch a movie. So, and that's good. It's good to be able to feel these things. And for me, who always represses any kind of a feeling, it's good to kind of have that practice of just letting it go, just letting it flow
yeah, and
out like
feel
that.
it. Just feel it and then
Yeah.
let it go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always, in a way, kind of healing to shed a few tears every once in a while, just to, because life can be sad. Hey, John, good to see you. So anyway, what we'll do, we'll kind of talk about the movie, and not just the movie, but subjects that the movie brings up. Like this particular movie, it dealt with relationships quite a bit, both in sobriety and not in sobriety. So I guess the movie is about, it stars Sandra Bullock, and she is a addict, alcoholic,
And her name
and
is Gwen.
Gwen, her name
Mhm.
is Gwen, and the movie starts with her, well, she's partying with her boyfriend and she's drunk, kind of shows you her lifestyle. And then on a Saturday when her sister is getting married, they wake up at the last minute and rush off to the wedding hungover. And she gets drunk at the wedding, and just makes everybody, I mean, just this is an embarrassing scene for everybody. She falls on the wedding cake and
Oh,
decide yeah, she falls on the wedding cake
no.
and decides that she's going to go off and get a new one for him. And so she gets in the limousine that they rented for the wedding, drives it, and
Oh,
crashes it in someone's house.
oh god.
Yeah. And then so she's arrested, and she's sentenced to either 28 days in jail or 28 days in treatment. And she elects treatment, and she goes there reluctantly. And that's where she meets all these characters in the treatment center. And the treatment center is kind of weird. Do you remember the scenes of the treatment center, Mary? They had you hear a lot of slogans and chanting and holding hands and stuff like that. I hope that treatment centers aren't really like that, because I wouldn't be able to deal with that.
Well, there are meetings like that.
Yeah, there are, aren't there? There
Yeah.
sure are.
Mhm.
So this the when she got there, though, she was really in denial still, and she wasn't ready to do anything about her problem, and she was still attached to this guy that she was partying with, that's her boyfriend. And he wasn't he she wasn't taking it seriously, and neither was he. So she's in this rehab, and her boyfriend comes to visit. Hi, Mike. Her boyfriend comes to visit and brings drugs and, I think, alcohol on that first visit. He brings alcohol a couple times. Anyway, so she gets drunk in rehab there, after his visit, and she's discovered, and the guy who runs the treatment facility confronts her about it, and she just is still in denial, insisting that she can control her drinking, that she doesn't need any of this. And I can understand that. That's how I certainly was too. The first time that I was ever approached with anybody about my drinking, it was employers. And I don't know. I think I believed it when I told them this. I somehow processed in my brain, Mary, that I was just going through a phase.
Right.
It's just a phase I was gonna grow out of it. It's just something I can get a handle on. Don't worry about it, guys. Everything's gonna be okay. And that's how she was until he threw the hammer down and said, "Well, I'm gonna send you to jail," because the judge said either treatment or jail. And at that point, she starts thinking things over and decides to make more of a commitment, I think, to recovery. Did I get that right, guys, out there in the chat room? That part of the movie so far? I think I did. But so anyway, that scene when she's in there with the guy who's running the place and she's denying that she has a problem, and then she's this prospect of going to jail was just too frightening and it's too much. And I could relate to that. I mean, I was looking at 30 days in jail myself. Yes, thank you, John. And I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine being
No.
in jail for 30 days,
Right.
And here, the jail at the time, they called it the farm.
You went to the farm.
It was a farm, and I did not want to go to a freaking farm. And and this one, later I actually took meetings there in sobriety,
Oh,
and it
wow.
was not a nice place. I
Yeah.
think they have since closed it down.
Mhm.
I don't know what they do with people now. They must have a nicer, newer jail, but that one was awful. So I'm glad I didn't have to go. Um, but yeah, so she's in this rehab, and there's all these goofy people, which is to be expected. Almost any movie I see that has where you go to rehab, people are a little bit goofy because we
Yeah.
are. I mean,
Yeah.
when we're first getting sober, we're goofy. I mean, I was
Right.
goofy.
We're still
Um,
goofy,
still
hopefully,
still
in
a
a
little
good way.
goofy.
In a
Yeah,
good way. Yeah.
yeah. Um, and I could relate to the fact that as she looked around at her surroundings and all the people and what they were doing and the slogans and the sayings, it all seemed kind of weird and bizarre. You know, it was a different world than what she was used to, and that was certainly for me. I mean, it's hard to, I've been in recovery and been using this the recovery language and been around AA for so many years that I kind of take this for granted. But when you're first exposed to it, it's a different thing, isn't it? It's like this
Very.
is
Yes.
the mhm.
I know, I mean, I think for me, people were so bluntly honest that I wasn't used to hearing people that way, and
Yeah.
also tell their secrets in meetings and say how they really feel behind the mask of everything's fine, what people really think. I hadn't ever really heard that before. Uh,
No.
yeah.
Yeah, that was for me, that was really a game changer for me actually when I because I've never experienced anything like that. I was not one who would ever talk about what was going on with me or seek help or anything like that, or even I couldn't even be honest about what was going on with me. Honestly, I couldn't. So when other people being honest about themselves taught me to be honest about
Yes.
myself.
Yes.
And I do have to say, AA did kind of put the fear of God in me. It's
Right.
literally, I guess, but because they said that you're not going to get sober if you're not honest.
Right.
And I thought I can't be honest. I was afraid I couldn't be honest because I lied to myself and believed my own lies.
Yes. We lied to ourselves so much to justify what we were doing.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I'm the best justifier around, especially to
yeah.
myself.
So John did see the movie Clean and Sober before when it came out, and I did too, John. It came out the year I got sober in 1988, and I think I watched it. I was just maybe a month or two sober, and so my it was the feelings. My feelings were so raw that I knew that character. I could just
Yeah.
relate to that character, and that was the first time, my first experience seeing a movie about recovery and addiction, and me seeing myself in the movie.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow, it was really, really a powerful experience, and still to this day, anytime I watch a movie, another really good one is, oh man, I'll think of it, later, but, oh dang, it was one of my favorite movies.
Leaving Las Vegas?
No, not Leaving Las Vegas, but, I'm sorry, I'll think of it later, but, Ben and I did a, the husband was an airplane pilot, Andy Garcia, and
Oh,
the
yeah. I
uh,
remember that movie.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
really a good movie, but any of these movies really kind of, I
There's
can
one
relate.
with, Denzel where he's a, pilot also with a drinking problem.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
can't
that
remember the name
that
of
was a
that.
good one too.
Yeah,
That was a good one
yeah.
too. So anyway, yes, I saw that movie. And then who's the other comments we got here? Mike saw the movie last night, and Ryan, standing in a circle holding hands and chanting has never failed to creep me out. Same. I was thinking as I was watching that movie, as people were chanting and doing all the slogans and all that kind of stuff, I thought to myself, I don't think I wouldn't, I don't, I, that's not my cup of tea. But you know what? Back 40 years, almost 34 years ago or whatever, when I was a kid and just getting sober, I probably would have said, okay, what the hell, whatever. Cause that's what I did when I was in AA. So I probably would have just kind of fall in line. John says that he went into treatment in 1987 in San Diego. It was not exactly like the movie, no chants, no songs, but there was plenty of medical instruction and psych counseling, group and individual. I'm glad to hear that. I've never been to treatment. And when I was watching the movie, I was really hoping that treatment centers aren't really like that. And I think that they, I think that the creators of the film, they tried to lighten it up a little bit. It was, and so they had these funny moments, in the film, and
Mhm.
that's kind of nice. You have the juxtaposition, I guess, of light moments and then really tough moments. Yes, when a man loves a woman. Thank you, Bree. When a man
Yes.
loves a woman,
Right, right.
that is one of my favorite movies of all times when it comes to recovery movies. It was so well done, and yeah. Thank you, Bree, for that. I appreciate it. Anyway, so where were we? We're talking about her finally getting to the point in the movie where she's deciding she's gonna get serious with her recovery, but she did have before she really did, she had one more little lapse, and what happened was she left that meeting with the counselor, she went to her room, and she's having withdrawals, and I think this is the scene where she takes these pills out, she's gonna take these pills, and she's not going to, so she throws them out the window. But then later she
Goes
tries to
out
go.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Try to
Sh
find him in the grass.
Mhm, and she
Mhm.
falls, and she kinda, passes out, and so once again, she's, you
Back where
know,
she started.
back where she started, and the people in her group, they don't really accept her very well because of this, and so when she's in this group meeting, and they're all kind of letting her know how disappointed they are and how they don't think she belongs there because she's not serious about her sobriety. And then she says, "Fuck you guys, leave me alone. I'm just doing whatever." And that's when she kind of gets part of the group
Mhm.
and gets settled in. But she still has this connection to this guy that she was partying with, and that it took some time for her. Actually, she it wasn't until the end of the movie when she got sober that she was finally able to recognize that relationship wasn't going to work for her.
Mhm. Yeah, because it was based on a common thing of using and getting drunk. Yep,
Yep. Yep,
yep.
and he could not see he didn't have he was probably an addict himself, and he couldn't support her or see how important it was for her. Bree says that, it was really popular when I sobered up for a while. I thought it was like required AA viewing. Yeah, that movie, When a Man Loves a Woman. Excellently. So, Mary, you found some material that
I
could help
did.
us
I
along here?
found a 28 days movie worksheet.
Okay.
So I was gonna ask you some questions. Um, list and give an example of a thinking error you saw Gwen use. Gwen, the Sandra Bullock character. What was a thinking
Oh,
error?
god, that's a tough one. I don't know. I guess the thinking error.
Well,
Oh,
let me
man.
ask you this. If they hadn't, when she fell on the wedding cake, stole the wedding limousine, ran into someone's house, if they hadn't told her that she had a choice between rehab or jail, do you think she would have just dusted herself off and not been horribly ashamed
Probably.
and would have just kept
Probably.
on doing her lifestyle?
Yes, because she wasn't ready. Even after they forced her to go to treatment, she wasn't ready. And I have to ask myself, I think, what about me? If because my third DUI, I was looking at going to jail. They gave me that choice too. It's either you're gonna go to jail for 30 days or you're gonna go to this addiction program thing and be on probation for a year or whatever. So I went with that rather than jail.
Yeah.
But if not that option, if I would have just been, slap on the wrist or something, God, I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do. It does seem like they always, we were talking about bottoms and if they're really necessary. Well, I think in a way, there's something has to happen to shake us up.
I agree. I think there's always a turning point,
Yep.
and I mine happened after a wedding, actually.
Oh, really?
I got drunk at a wedding reception, a family wedding reception, and I waited till my close relatives, elders, went to bed before I really started, because I knew if I drank one around, so I waited till they left the reception and then I started drinking. And the shame and guilt I felt the next day because I couldn't remember what I'd done, and I was scared to go down to the breakfast at the hotel because I didn't know if I'd made an ass of myself or not. That wedding reception was sort of the end for me. That's when I realized you have to do something, because
Yeah.
I didn't want to live with the shame and the guilt and the not knowing and the uncontrollable ability when I took that first drink. I just, all of a sudden, that wedding reception did it.
Yeah.
It was the biggest shame, and maybe looking at me from the outside, I didn't hang from the chandelier, but it was the fact I didn't know if I did or not.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's scary. In fact, her character in this movie, Gwen, she had the same thing. It turns out that she gave this awful, speech at the wedding that was really embarrassing to her sister. So, but she had no memory of it. Gwen had no memory of it, and she was confronted by her sister in treatment about that. That's how she knew about it. But
Wow.
yeah, those blackouts, that was, for me too, Mary, it was, that's okay. So we talked a little bit before this about Clean and Sober, that movie you saw, and there was that scene where he's kind of discovered
Yeah.
and outed for being an addict.
Yep.
And when that happened to me, when I was confronted by my employer and they said the gig is up, we know that you got a problem, and by the way, we've been talking to you about it for the last year. Um, I think the thing about that really impacted me so strongly is because during these time when I was drinking, I was having these blackouts. I was doing my best to try to. I was afraid that people might have seen me.
Mhm.
I'd go to work and I'd have this like real fear that someone might have seen me in the bar, and I don't know what I had done.
Right.
And this had happened. This has been going on for years. I remember even sitting in classrooms sometimes and thinking, God, what did I do last night? Did anybody see me? Feeling kind of guilty and ashamed.
Yes.
And then when you're finally being told that, yes, we do know, they
Right.
didn't might not have seen me, but it's up,
It's up.
and
It's
it's
up.
a very
Yeah.
powerful experience. So, oh, Bree says that the wedding scene gave her some
Mhm.
PTSD, whatever,
Mhm.
post traumatic stress.
Mhm.
Yes,
And I
yes,
felt that way about the movie Clean and Sober. It was difficult to watch. It was hard for me to watch because he was in such denial, and he was bullshitting so many people, and they all knew the gig. They knew what he was doing, and he still lied
yeah.
and lied and lied and lied. And he was trying to get his mom and dad to put a second
Oh
mortgage on the
God, I
house
remember
to
that.
give him money to, because he had embezzled money and when he,
Yep,
from his firm. And I mean, the depths that we will go to get our next drug, the depths.
yep.
Yeah. And what it takes, what it actually takes. But I've been in a lot of meetings where people came from the treatment center, or they were ordered by the court to be there. And they're just filling out the paperwork and they're not listening and they don't give a flying fuck.
Right.
And you wonder how many more court ordered meetings is it going to take? Is it going to take? And I feel like we're just lucky ones that we sort of came to and realized. And for me, it was about the people. It wasn't the chanting and the head bowing. I didn't think any of that was weird, really. I just thought that people were laughing and they looked happy, and they were just sitting around after the meeting, smoking cigarettes and enjoying each other's company. And I hadn't felt that in a long time. I felt like I was carrying the burden of the world on my shoulders.
Mm,
And they looked light and happy. And that's
yeah.
what attracted me.
Yeah, same. To hear the laughter in the meeting was a big deal for me, to see that there's some hope after this.
Yeah.
Mike said, I like this comment. Mike says that one thing that he related to was behaving embarrassingly, but not catching on to how others are perceiving me. That's exactly what happened to Gwen in this movie. She's oblivious, maybe realizing it later and feeling so much shame.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I always wonder when people make movies, like I looked up Clean and Sober, and one of the actresses in that movie actually now has a whole website about the Sinclair Method. So she was in the rehab in the movie as an actress, but as a human being, she is in recovery and she does the Sinclair Method.
Who's that?
And her name was Claudia Christian. She
Oh,
played,
really? Was she in Clean and Sober?
yes.
Oh my god, I did not know that.
Yeah, I thought she looked familiar, like I'd seen her somewhere, so I Googled her,
Yeah, I'm
and
familiar
she's
with
a big
Claudia Christian
proponent of the
and that.
Sinclair
Oh,
Method,
how
yeah.
about that?
So I
Interesting.
always wondered if any of the actors in all the movies that play in recovery are in recovery as well, which
Yeah,
is a possibility.
I know. I think in Hollywood that there probably are a lot of them, but I don't know if Sandra is. I don't think she is, but she did a pretty good job.
I think
But
Michael Keaton might be.
yeah, he might
I
be.
just have a feeling he might be, yeah. When I started looking at after I forgot he was Batman, at first I just all I could see was Batman, but then when I kind of forgot that, then I mean, he's such a good actor. So
Lil
good.
Phoenix says Gwen lied to herself about needing help, thinking she could handle it on her own. And apparently that was a theme in the movie from growing up with her sister and having to wear the sign at the center. Thank you for bringing up her growing up period. That was really interesting because so part of this movie is these relationships that she has with her sister and her boyfriend, and then even some of the people in treatment. But the relationship with her sister was really interesting because during the movie, Gwen is having these flashbacks of her growing up time, and her mother was an alcoholic and and wasn't really able to be there for the kids. Wasn't She wasn't a safe person to be around. You know, her mother would pass out drunk, and they'd have to slap her to make her come to, and so forth. And her sister was older, and there was a scene in the movie when they were having family week, and Gwen wanted her sister to come for that, and she did come, but it wasn't constructive at all. They just weren't, there was so much resentment between the 2,
Mhm.
even though they had this common experience growing up. This makes me cry almost,
Mhm.
but towards the end of the movie, they did reconcile. They came together, and there was this beautiful scene where, they recognized that they both had this common experience growing up, and that they both were doing their best,
Mhm.
and that they really loved each other, and they came together. But the older sister felt guilty because she wasn't there for her younger sister. She said, "I should have been walking you to the bus. I should have been doing all these things, that her mother should have been doing that
Right,
couldn't do."
right.
And then Gwen says, "Yeah, but you were a kid too."
Yeah,
So they had
yeah,
a really tough time growing up. And so, thinking about that and what we know about addiction today and how trauma influences our later addiction, that the movie plays that out pretty well with these flashbacks of her growing up years. You can really understand that, this is how she was coping,
yeah,
with that trauma from the
yes,
past. But thank you for
yes.
mentioning that. It was such a powerful scene, with her and her sister.
And th
And
they both
yeah.
forgave they sort of had a moment where they really saw each other clearly,
Mhm.
and then there was the love they connected with each
And
other.
we're able to talk about their growing up in that dysfunctional home. That's not easy. I can't even have that conversation with my siblings to this day. And another thing that complicates that is we all have our own unique memories of that time. We were all affected differently. So we all have different perceptions of, and maybe even we had different relationships with our parents even.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to even do that. So but
So
yeah, tough
people they
tough stuff.
just don't wanna have the conversation? It's like just something you don't ever talk about?
No, I think that we talked about it early on after my mother's death. I think that some of us talked about it, but no, not a whole lot. And if I hear, I guess maybe I should put it this way: I don't talk about it because when I hear my older brother and sister talk about their experience growing up, I can't relate to it. It wasn't the same experience that I had,
Right.
which makes sense because they were a lot older than me, and so
Mhm.
they had a longer experience with my parents and so forth. So Bree says that the best recovery film that she's ever seen is Thanks for Sharing.
Oh, cool.
Ben and I did that one too, and Thanks for Sharing is about sex addiction.
Okay.
She says the almost the entire cast of Recovery Peeps, we found it by accident, while borrowing films. That was a really good one. That was with, Pink was in that one.
Oh, good. I've never even heard of it. I'm gonna watch it. Thank you.
Yeah, it was really good. They did an excellent job in that film of portraying, addiction and recovery and the oh, let me put up our phone number so y'all can call in if you want to. I will put up the
The thing I loved about Clean and Sober was the thing that was so interesting to me when the movie sort of ended, he got his 30-day chip, and all the crap that had happened to him in the movie had happened in his first 30 days
mhm,
of sobriety. And it was like, good God. It was like he sort of traded his cocaine addiction to relationship addiction, to a person addiction. And that person was in rehab with him. And then she was addicted to her husband in a very toxic relationship. And so you got to see what drugs they use and how it affects their lives. And it's amazing that that all happens in his first 30 days. But Morgan
mhm.
Freeman was the
Oh,
rehab.
that's right, I remember that.
Yeah. And uh, he took people to the meeting in a big beat up old white van and said, "You're going to an AA meeting, and I want you to, when you come out, you have to have a sponsor." And, I've seen that van pull up at meetings I've been in. Yeah, and so it
Yeah.
was good to kinda see it from the
I
other
remember
side.
that sponsor too. I liked that. I liked that relationship that he had with his sponsor in
Oh,
that
yeah, I
movie.
loved that the way that guy sponsored him
Yes,
was
yes.
awesome.
Oh
He
god,
was
that's a
not
good I'm gonna have to
pushy.
watch that movie again.
It
I'm
was
gonna watch
so
that movie
good. The
again.
guy that played the sponsor did a great job, and the funny
He
part
did.
was they were in a diner, and the sponsor, like,
He was eating
Michael
that
Keaton, he was eating, like, 5 milkshakes,
yeah.
cake, ice cream. I mean, he
God,
had cake, ice cream, and a milkshake. I mean, it was just funny.
I'd be buzzing.
And by the end of it, when he did his 4th step, they both had, like, 10 different, kinds of sugar on their plate.
Yeah. Sabri says, "Yeah, dysfunctional homes. I understand that stuff, John. I did discover a bond with my recovering father that I couldn't explain to my siblings or mom." Yeah, I mean, it's family dynamics are different. You know, we had 4 kids in my family. My brother and sister were older than me by 7 to 10 years, you know, quite a bit. And, and they actually had, a different father, you know, they from my mother's first marriage. So there were different relationships, you know, different
Yeah,
experiences and different relationships growing up in that family. So, and I understand that now, you know, so I can respect that, but I can't, you know, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, it's tough stuff.
My siblings are 16, 20, and 25 years older,
Oh, wow.
and they had the drunk parents. They had my mom
Wow.
and dad that were drunk, and I had a mom and dad,
Oh
same
my
people,
goodness.
but they were in
Completely
AA.
different.
Totally, totally different. I got different parents,
Yep.
and we all had the same parents, but we had completely different growing up.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Amazing. So now where were we? Okay, so we're in the movie. There's
Oh, yeah.
more.
You want me to ask you another question
Sure,
from
go
the
ahead if I
worksheet?
can answer it. I don't know. These are
Okay,
tough questions. That was a tough one, that one. But go ahead.
uh, let's see. Give an example of Gwen, the lead character, using victim stance, minimizing, and failure to put oneself in another's position. And why did they make her wear a sign, and what was the sign?
That was kind of different, but at this treatment center, they would make the, patients wear a sign. It was some sort of therapy thing, I don't know, but her sign something like, "Confront me if I'm not asking for help when I need it." So you know, they recognized that she was reluctant to ask for help,
Hmm.
something like that. So she had to wear the sign to, you know, let people know that she doesn't ask for help, and I guess maybe that would facilitate some type of interaction or
Yeah.
whatever.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but, what was that question again?
Okay. So, hold on. Give an example of Gwen using the victim stance and minimizing, and she also failed to see herself in other people. You know.
Yeah, she minimized the whole thing about her sister's wedding
Oh.
during that first confrontation that when with her sister in the group setting on family day. That's when her sister brought up the speech that Gwen gave that
Oh.
Gwen didn't remember because I guess she was
Right.
blacked out. And Gwen didn't fully appreciate just how awful it was what she did. I don't think she fully appreciated it. And I
What
think
was the speech? How horrible was
oh,
it?
I mean, it was like, saying that her sister's just getting married because the guy has a lot of money.
Oh
That's why
god.
she's marrying the guy and all this kind of stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so, yeah, I don't think that even at that point, I don't think she really fully understood how much that hurt her sister until she realized that that speech that she couldn't even remember had
Right.
occurred. And then I
Right.
think she was able to start to process that, wow, this was a really bad thing that I did here to my sister. It really did cause a lot of pain.
Can you imagine on your wedding day to have that happen?
Mhm.
Awful. Yeah.
But another relationship I'd like to talk about is a relationship she had with her boyfriend. And I know a lot of people can relate to this. I didn't have this experience. I didn't have a relationship before getting sober or anything. But her drinking was really tied into this relationship that she had. Their relationship was all about partying and drinking and having fun and all of this. So she this guy, never really supported her in her recovery. And she wasn't serious about it either. But even after she was getting serious about it, there's this scene when he came out to propose. And when he came out to propose, he brought some champagne.
Oh, wow.
And at this point, she was serious about her getting sober. She wanted to get sober. So she threw the champagne, and they were in a boat on a lake. She threw the champagne in the water and, you know, was frustrated that this guy couldn't understand that she's now serious about this. But I don't know if she accepted the proposal. I don't think so, but she was saying that, I just want to have a normal life. She was telling him, there are people out there who don't drink who are happy.
Mhm.
And she just wanted to have this, which I can totally relate to. It was like,
Mm.
I know that there are people out there that have normal lives, and I'm not one of them.
Right.
I just want to wake up in the morning and go to work and not have it be a big
Right.
ordeal,
And
you
right.
know?
Right.
So
Totally.
yeah. And she just wanted to have a normal life.
So
But
how did it end? What was the end?
well, so she didn't really end the relationship. She was really tied in, but there was this guy that she met in treatment who was a baseball player who turned out to be a pretty nice guy. And they became friends and were getting close to having a romantic relationship. I think they kissed or whatever. I think they kissed, but I don't think that they ever went all the way through with, having a romantic relationship, but they did have a bond. And there was a scene where her boyfriend shows up when she's with this guy, this baseball player, and the boyfriend's a jerk. The baseball player's from Oklahoma. He calls him the boyfriend's from England, calls the guy from Oklahoma a redneck. Things don't turn out well. So the boyfriend gets a punch in the face, and that's how that ends. But the guy felt bad about that, and the baseball player thought he made a mistake. And anyway, later on they kind of made up. But anyway, she still didn't break up with the boyfriend. It
Wow.
wasn't until after she got out of treatment and she's she's now stable. She's she knows what she needs to do. She knows that I need to not drink one day at a time. I need to go to meetings. I need to be serious about my recovery. I need to get a sponsor. She really wants to do this. And it shows her walking through her neighborhood in New York, and they have all these bars and stuff, and she just walks by them. And her boyfriend comes up.
Oh,
Yeah. And he wants to party.
right.
And he doesn't understand that she's changed and that this new life is important to her. So she gives him one last kiss and says, this, go have fun. And she washes her hand of it, and she moves on. But that's what it took for her. She finally, when she got out of treatment, she could finally see that this guy was not good for her.
Mhm.
A lot of people don't see that though.
No.
Frank has a comment. I had to wear a dunce sign at a youth treatment center. Wow. I
Wow.
found no redeeming value in group shaming, especially as I was carrying shame already. I agree with that. I don't think that would be
Agreed.
helpful at
Yeah.
all. These kind of treatment centers should be outlawed. There's some weird stuff that goes on. I've never experienced a treatment center.
I haven't either.
Yeah, just it probably would have been beneficial to me. Actually, when I was watching Clean and Sober that first time, I thought, God, I wish I was in treatment. So I was like, because just so I could just kind of have a get away and kind
Mhm.
of deal with all these fears and worries and all this stuff. But I pretty much lived in AA meetings. Mary, during my first 30 days, I didn't have a job or anything. I would go to like make sometimes 4 meetings a day. I would start off, I think at noon, 5, 7, midnight, whatever. I knew all these different meetings I would go to, and that's what I did. But I did that because when I first stopped drinking, I still wanted to drink. I could not get drinking out of my mind. I
Mhm.
had so much fear about this upcoming DUI conviction and everything that all I could think about was shutting my freaking brain off, and the only way I knew to do that was to drink.
Right.
That was my biggest challenge that first 30 days. And the only way I couldn't drink, the only way that I could do that, make it, was by going to a meeting and being around other people. And
Mhm.
so I did do that. Treatment would have helped me in that sense. It would have gotten me away from isolated, and around people 24/7. But I was able to replicate that by just going to meetings, and I saw plenty of goofy people and did goofy things, but I
Yeah.
was staying sober. So yeah, that wedding toast was painful for John to see, since I did things like that, especially in a blackout. Little Phoenix says that she memorized the program itself and breaking the rules. That's right. And the consequences for breaking them. Yeah, she didn't think that the rules applied to her, did she? She just figured that, this is silly. You guys are all silly. Um, and then Little Phoenix says, I love the end when she sees the guy from treatment and he killed his patient, and he
No, his
is,
plant. He
oh,
killed
his
his
plant.
plant.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And he is pleading with the shop that that's not his fault. So what happened? There were some funny scenes in that movie. So what happened was, the treatment center director was speaking, and someone asked, when can I have a relationship when I get out of here? And his answer was, well, first get a plant and a pet. And if they're both still alive after a year, you can start having a relationship. And well, this poor guy took it seriously, got a plant, got a pet, had a nice little dog with him, but his plant died. And so he wanted to get a relationship. So, but he couldn't because his plant died. He was just he was so upset. But you're right, Little Phoenix. That was a funny scene. Um,
But not really bad advice.
yeah, it does take a while. They do say, wait at least a year. That's what I was told.
Mhm.
To wait at least a
Yep.
year.
Yep. I've seen it go really badly when people didn't, and I've also seen it go great when people didn't. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's
But I
it's
don't feel I honestly don't personally feel like it's a good idea because the extreme emotions on either side of a relationship, I can't afford to have when I'm newly sober.
Yeah, and you're really, getting to know your new self.
True.
You don't even know yourself, and so it'd be really tough to, I think, to start a new relationship.
Yep.
I didn't. I did start dating my second year of sobriety, and that was a challenge. But I met some nice people, nice women, but I don't think I was ready. I wasn't stable enough even after 2 years to do that. But I remember this one woman I met. She was really nice. I think I knew her from, I don't know if it was from high school or from a previous job, or I think maybe a previous job, I don't know. But she was really super nice and supportive of what I was doing when I told her that. But I just was not ready. I wasn't stable. I mean, I
Yeah.
was still struggling putting food on the table and keeping a roof over my head, and
Right.
life was still kind of crazy. So, my focus was really on that at that time. But yeah, I was fortunate that I did have that experience. Then I didn't really get serious about dating until the internet was born, and it became a lot easier to
Yeah.
meet people. That
Yeah.
was another funny thing about this movie. This movie came out in 2000, and I forgot how things were in 2000, that we didn't have smartphones, and she was using a phone that had an antenna on it.
Yeah.
That was funny. So, did I read this one? When Gwen says goodbye, Jasper, it is the end of the relationship. Great acting. I went to treatment to get a vacation from life and get the heat off my family.
Mhm.
That's what I was wanting, thinking about at that time, is just be nice, just to get away. It was so tough those first days. I was telling Mary before we started recording that one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching that movie is, I'm so glad I'm sober. I do not want to
Yeah.
go through that process of getting
No.
sober again.
Oh,
That was
no.
so hard.
Yes.
It is so hard, and that's one good thing about watching these movies. It does remind you how hard it is, and it's helpful. So if you're talking to somebody who's new, to in a meeting or whatever, just remember what they're going through because we've all been through that. It's
Mhm.
tough. It's
It's
not easy at
horribly
all.
tough. Yes.
It's all these different things that we have to deal with. Relationships with people who might not support us in our desire to be sober, dysfunctional relationships, maybe some good ones, just all the problems that we have are dealing with trying to get sober. It's really some tough stuff. Um, the exercise of picking up the horse's leg was significant. Tell me about that, Raha. And if you would like to call in, you can.
It's
I'm at 844.
Raja.
Oh,
It's
Rajah,
Raja.
thank you.
Yeah.
Rajah, give us a call, 844-899-8278. I'd like to hear about that because I was a little confused. And I know they do equine therapy at different places. But yeah, they had this deal where um, it, they had this deal where they would go out to this horse and they would try to pet the horse and calm it down. And the goal was being that you could pick up the the horse's leg and look at its hoof to maybe clean its hoof or whatever. And you, it's a trick, I guess, to do that. And she was never able to do that in treatment. But when she finally got out of treatment, there was a scene where she went to a horse in New York City, one of these carriage horses, and was able to finally do that. But yeah, if you want to talk about that, that'd be cool because I don't really understand that, but that's it was significant and important and interesting. Walker, I don't really understand your comment. Is sex? Oh, is sex a relationship? Yeah, I'm sorry. Is sex a relationship? I
It's
think
a
it is.
it's a sexual relationship.
It is. I mean, it's a relationship. Even if it doesn't mean anything, you're not going to carry on. It is a relationship for that moment. You've made some sort of a bond, I guess, with that person. But maybe it's not. Doesn't mean anything. I mean, that was going on in the treatment center. She'd get on elevators, and and I'm sure it happens in treatment centers. Patients messing with each other and stuff. But yeah, I think it counts as a relationship.
But I
Uh,
would never date anyone in my home group. That is, like,
no,
off
me
limits.
either.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanna have a messy anything in my home group. My home group is where I would go for inspiration and everybody be on the even playing field and not have any. I just don't. I know people do date within their AA circles, but I've never done that.
Yeah. Someone gave me advice at some time. It was don't get your honey where you make your money. And so I kind of applied that to AA too. I didn't, and I did have this feeling that, as bad as I am with dealing with relationships, if someone at that time, someone, and even now, someone didn't like me and didn't want to date me or whatever, it'd be crushing. I don't know if I could deal with it. I wouldn't be able to go to that meeting again.
Right,
You know,
exactly. So you
I,
screw. Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be able to. So fortunately for me, I went to an all men's meeting, and so I didn't have interactions with women a whole lot. I did have some female friends but I didn't go to meetings with them or anything that were in the program. But so I didn't really have to deal with that so much. But I did go to some. I mean, I would go to mixed meetings, but I never got into the dating and AA thing. Now at the time, they used to have a lot of dances,
Mhm.
AA dances, and I used to go to those, and I used to enjoy those. They were kind of weird in a way. It was almost like being in a bar, and trying to have a conversation and dance with someone or whatever. But they were fun too. Those are good memories. Um, oh, gotta go, Bree. Nice talking to you. Nice seeing you. I'm so glad that you came today. And John says it's nice to just put life on pause in treatment. That's what I would think. It also got through my psychological BS with regards to my denial and asking for help.
Mhm.
I think it would have helped me too at that time. I had the opportunity. I had insurance through my employer, and they told me even when they fired me, you can still use this and go to treatment. But
Well, why why didn't you do it?
I I was afraid. I was afraid. Um, I was just scared. I was afraid of everything.
So was it easier for you to just walk into a meeting
It
by
was easy for me to go
yourself?
to AA meetings, and
Yeah.
I tell you what, Mary, for a long time, even when I went to meetings in those early days, I was in and out. I wouldn't stick around.
Yeah, me neither. I never talked for at least a year.
I was like that too, and yeah, I was like that too. It took me a
Yeah.
while to come out, and the guys at my home group, they would remind me of that later on, that about that. Something they used to do This wasn't such a nice thing. This was kind of a weird group, but I was so withdrawn and so quiet and hesitant to talk um, with people individually. I'd share in meetings, but I wouldn't really even have any kind of connection, early on. And anyway, it got to this point where, for whatever reason, if I when I walked in the room, everybody would give me a standing ovation. Give me, they'd all clap and give me a standing ovation, and it was like, oh God. and, and sometimes even I'd start sharing. They'd say, "Hey!" It was just, they just anyway. It was a way. It did kind of bring me out of my shell a little bit. I know that they loved me and it was great, but anyway, they used to do that. But yeah, I was very different back then. I would not, bam, in and out. It took me,
Yeah.
like you say, I think about a year before I really started opening up. As far as, I mean, I would share in meetings, and during meeting time, I would talk. But before and after the meeting, I was gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't wanna talk to anybody, at all. I just wanted to get in and get out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bobbert, remember in early recovery, the people you want to date in the rooms are the same ones we used to pick up at the bars. Probably so. Probably so. In early recovery, the people you want to date in the rooms are the same ones we used to pick up in bars. Yeah. So, what else is there about that movie that
Oh,
the relationships part was, I thought, significant. Her coming out of denial was I could relate to all these characters that she was around in treatment.
so, the first question here says, "What are some fears that you faced upon leaving the program, and, what did you see in Gwen's fears?" Like, was she afraid to leave the program? And I imagine it would be really hard if I had been in treatment and left to all of a sudden have no structure and be by yourself.
I think that her fear was, could she stay sober in her old environment, because it showed her in that last scene walking around and there were bars and all this stuff, and the relationship. I think she was afraid of, she knew that there was something, that relationship had to change.
Yeah. She
And
had
I
to
think
deal with it. Yeah.
I think those were her fears. And my fears were, oh man, I guess eventually dealing with family was my biggest challenge. Um, yeah, just trying to be part of my family again. And then my family at that time existed was my father, my siblings, you know, um, basically was that. And because I just didn't feel comfortable, and it was hard. It was really hard. I made a big effort in my first five several years of sobriety of establishing a relationship with my father, and I'm glad that I did. He died after I'd been sober for 10 years. And my dad, whenever I'd come visit him, he always wanted me to stay the night. He didn't want me to leave. And I didn't want to. I always wanted to go back to KC, and, you know, but I got to where I would stay there. I'd go ahead and stay the night because my dad wanted me to. And I'm glad that I did that. I'm really glad. That was my way, I guess, of making amends. But
Mhm.
that was the most scary part for me, I think, in early recovery, was dealing with my family, because I was different. I was a different person.
Mhm.
And it was hard. But my family was good to me, and they supported me. I was very lucky. All of my family was completely supportive of my getting sober. Um,
Wonderful.
I think some of them, like my older brother, was surprised by it, um, because I think he also needed to be in recovery.
Yeah.
but but they were very supportive, so I was really lucky about that. Um,
I think I was afraid of being at work because I was in a job that when you timed out, you went to the bar because we were at hotels, and I had to just stay in my room alone for months, maybe a year at least. I couldn't hang out with people because that's where they would hang out, and I didn't trust myself. So I was called a slam clicker, which means you slam the door and click the lock,
oh,
which means she's not going to come down and hang out with us. So I was a slam clicker for a long time, and I just had to let that be okay. And I would just call people in my group or talk to my
uh,
sponsor. Yeah.
yeah. So before, when you were drinking, were you not a slam clicker? Were you?
Oh
Were you?
no, God, I was a oh Yeah, I was at the bar, I was on the layover, I was, with the mini bottles.
Uh-huh.
One
Oh,
time
those
I went
airplane mini bottles. Hmm.
yes, we would take the, liquor kits off the plane, and they had 48 mini bottles per liquor kit, and, it was, that was before drug and alcohol testing, and I
Uh,
remember one time I had a big liquor bottle, but it only had a little bit in it, but I didn't wanna leave it in the trash at the hotel because it still had, like, that much in it, and then I went
mhm.
through the TSA and they opened my suitcase and pulled out this, and it wasn't like at that point against any rule, but everyone saw this big vodka bottle with just a, and I was so ashamed going through security. I remember like that guy in Clean and Sober when they put the notice on his door because the girlfriend had died in the bed and the father accused him of being a murderer because he gave her the drugs that killed her, and they were plastered in the whole apartment complex. I felt like that in that moment going through
Yeah.
security. Those are things that stick in my head of like, "Oh god."
Yeah.
Yeah, just mortified.
John, I'm glad you brought this up. John has a comment here, Mary, about Gwen's roommate. Do you remember this part in the movie? Her roommate ended up killing herself in the movie. So
Wow.
her roommate was this young woman who also had a cutting addiction.
Mhm.
So whenever she was upset, she would cut herself. And Gwen really cared for her. And there was this part of the movie where her roommate was getting ready to leave treatment, and they gave her this party, the send off and everything. But she ended up ODing,
Ooh.
overdosing before she left treatment. And there was something, John, about that that I was thinking about was during that first scene where she confronted her roommate when she was cutting herself. The roommate said, "Don't tell anybody, don't tell anybody," and Gwen didn't tell anybody. I Maybe I was reading into it, but I was thinking that Gwen was feeling some guilt, maybe extra guilt when her roommate OD'd because she thought maybe if I would have said something, maybe if, and maybe I'm reading into that because I have lived through that
Mhm.
suicide thing where someone I love has committed suicide and the first thing you do is like, damn it, why didn't I this,
Right.
that? So I was probably reading that into it. But when during that when she died, John, I went back to that other scene right away. I don't know if other people did that or not, but that was tough. But her roommate just couldn't face it, face
No.
the world.
No.
Um, and it would be scary. That would be one tough thing about treatment because the one advantage that I think you and I had, Mary, is that we were getting sober while we were out there in the real world.
Yes, true. That's very true.
It'd be really tough just to be removed in a safe place and then thrown out into the world again.
True.
That would be kind of tough.
Yes, very jarring.
Lil Phoenix says, yes, the relationship with the roommate moved from aggravation to concern to empathy, and eventually Gwen doing something for someone else for once with her Goodbye Santa Cruz. Yeah. They all love this soap opera Santa Cruz. I don't know if that was a real soap opera or not. But they did the scene at the end of the movie when the roommate was leaving, and they did a scene of Santa Cruz where they were acting like they were the actors in the movie or whatever.
Oh,
But
gotcha.
yeah, that relationship did move quite a bit. When she first got there, she found the kid kind of annoying, and then she understood her better and really cared about her, towards the end.
So
So
she learned empathy and to
she
see
did.
someone else's perspective.
She did.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
wanted to get back to the thing about the horse.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so I think, and I'm not an equine expert, but I think it's about in order to walk up to a horse, you have to trust the horse, and the horse has to trust you to be able to take the horse's leg and look at the hoof. I think, you have to be calm, internally calm, and there's a thing about the energy between you and the horse has to trust you and you have to trust him, and it's sort of a mutual trust thing.
Oh, okay.
That's just my interpretation, but, I
That
think
makes sense.
horses sense people's energies.
Oh, yeah.
And
No,
I
that
think,
makes sense.
perhaps when you're in recovery, you might be a little calmer than you were when you were out using.
That makes sense.
That's just my take. If anybody else has a take, let me know.
That makes sense. I think that is what it is. Is it was exactly that. Was having that learning the trust. Gwen had to face the pain of her loss sober too. Probably her first time not turning to alcohol.
Yep, yep,
Very,
yep,
very,
yep,
very tough having to deal with loss sober. My grandfather died in my first year of sobriety. It was so difficult to deal with sober. Yes, I had that after 10 years of sobriety. My father died totally unexpectedly, and it did put me on a different track. Um, I uh, I remember at the time thinking, okay, I've been in recovery for 10 years and I know how to deal with this. I'm going to be fine. But I was crazy nonetheless. I mean, you just can't
yeah.
control what's going to go on
No,
with, I stayed sober, but I was a mess. But the one thing that his death did for me, it made me think that there's more I want to do in life. And so I went on a different track after that next 10 years of my sobriety was spent, finishing my education, getting married and becoming a grown up, I guess.
mhm,
So oh lordy. John says there was a reentry process during my last week in treatment that helped a lot. Okay, I'm glad. I think that would be necessary when you think about it, to have they kind of gradually move you in, I guess, to getting back out there into the real world. I can also see what the advantage of being in a sober house, if you leave treatment and have
yes,
that halfway house before you
yes,
go back all the way
yes,
in.
yep. And
In the
what I go ahead.
in the movie, they say that your outside has to match your inside for the horse to let you lift its leg. Oh,
Yep,
that's what you were
that's
saying, Mary.
yep,
That the horse will
yep,
sense any discomfort you
yep,
have.
yep. It's a trust thing. Yep.
Mhm.
And, I liked in the Clean and Sober movie that his sponsor took him out of drove him home from rehab and went in his apartment, and when you see his
Oh, yeah.
apartment, it was like, oh god, a horrible mess, and his sponsor helped him clean it up, and then he also said, "Where are your hiding places?"
Mhm.
And the sponsor knew where to look, where he would have hidden his drugs, and so he went through the whole house and dumped out any possible sign of drugs and got it in a more orderly fashion, and I think the outside order has a lot to do with our inside order.
Mhm. I
You know
agree.
Yep. When my house gets messed up and I haven't like, the dishes pile up in the sink and the laundry piles up, it kinda reminds me of how I felt when I was hungover and when I was drinking, and it gives me that ick factor where it looks like it just reminds me of how my house used to look when I was drinking, and I don't like that feeling. And so I try to maintain some sort of order. It's not perfect, but it's better than it was
Yeah.
for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I no, I can relate. Yeah, I just some of my behaviors haven't changed so much. When my little brother kind of would laugh when he would remind me of this, but there was one time he visited me in my little apartment and he opened up this kitchen drawer and it was full of tickets
Wow.
um for speeding or running a red light or DWI, all these warrants. He gave
Wow.
all in this drawer, stuff I wasn't dealing with. And I remember I somehow made up some kind of a story or excuse, but my brothers to this day, I mean, he would laugh and say, "Remember that time I opened up that drawer and you had all those unpaid tickets and warrants and all this kind of stuff?" But anyway, I have this bad habit of having a drawer and just throwing crap in it and
Yeah. Yep.
not dealing with
Oh,
it
yeah, deal
later.
it with it later
Yeah,
pile. Yeah, we all
yeah.
have a deal with it later pile somewhere.
Equine suspensory is not direct. It usually requires a cooperative motion first. Okay. I got to learn more about horses. I don't have a lot of experience with horses and maybe it would be fun to go horse riding someday. I might ask my wife about that if she wants to give it a try. I've never the only time I rode a horse, I think I was maybe 10 years old and the horse fell down on me.
Oh,
Yeah, it's I don't know. I turned out okay, but that was my last experience riding a horse or with horses. Well, this has been fun. I think it's been a good discussion. Mary, even with you not watching the right movie, it turned out okay. I mean, heck. Sandra Bullock did a great job in this one. I love the movie, and we'll do another movie sometime. Maybe we will do Clean and Sober. I'd like to see that movie again.
yeah, it's intense, and I'm gonna look up Thanks for Sharing, so thanks for that.
Oh yeah, that's a really good one. And I think next week we might have a speaker. We might have a guest. Mary mentioned that there's someone from her home group she might ask. Now it is a July 4th weekend, so if she can't make it, we'll just have to do a topic or something, which we can do. But if she can make it, that'd be great too.
Okay, I will
That'd be
ask.
wonderful. I've got some new equipment, and I haven't put my disco music on here yet, so I don't really have any music to play out to say goodbye. So I'll just have to say goodbye. Bye, everybody. It's been fun. Take care,
All
y'all.
right,
We'll
have a
be
good
back next
week.
week. Been fun. Bye bye.